Today on Trucks, Mel and Stacey get the suspension on Wicked Willy's ready for the trail. In the rear, it'll be a high pinion 9-inch Ford, while a Dana 44 leads the way in the front. After that, they'll take a look at our rare bow tie, the 57 Cameo. Then it's time to show you how to build a sturdy set of Sawhorses for your shop. That's all today on Trucks.
Hello everybody, thanks for being with us. If you weren't with us a few weeks ago and you missed us drop a Dodge crate motor into Project Wicked Willy's. We also bolted on Advanced Adapters NV 4500 5-speed tranny as well as their Atlas 2 transfer case. This week we're going to finish the frame by fitting our 55 Willys wagon with custom axles front and rear, not to mention a set of springs. It's going to have us sitting 6 inches higher.
Now, due to the extra horsepower and weight of this new drivetrain, we're going to box the frame for extra strength. Now, there's a few different ways that you can do that. You can box to the outside of the frame. The only drawback here is you have to roll the frame upside down to get the bottom. Or you can do what's called a step box. Now, this gives you room to run your brake and fuel lines inside the frame rail. Or you can do what we're going to do and box flush with the frame for a real clean appearance. Now remember, any of these techniques done correctly will give you all the strength that you need.
Some of you guys are probably wondering how to measure out your boxing pieces. A slick trick we like to use is to lay a piece of cardboard on the frame rail. After tapping it down with a hammer, you have a perfect template.
Now that we have the frame boxed, we can weld in the new pedal assembly that we got from Total Cost Involved, or TCI for short. Now it comes complete with the power booster and the master cylinders for the brakes and the clutch. Now to get this thing in the right position, come down here and measure the location of your stock pedals. Then weld a bracket in place with the new pedals in the same location.
Of course, whenever you go off-road, you have to have clearance. These babies from National Spring are custom made to give us that 6-inch lift we're after. Now, most aftermarket springs use 3 or 4 really thick leaves to give you your load capacity. Unfortunately, that can limit your articulation and can also make for a much stiffer ride. National Spring uses a greater number of thinner leaves to give you a better ride and better articulation without limiting your load capacity.
We're going to use this hoist to jack up the back of the frame so we can unbolt the springs and pull out the whole rear end assembly. That way we'll have room for the new hardware. For shackles, we're going to use the Hyper Shackle that we got from the 4x store. Now when you're driving down the street, it acts like a normal shackle. But when you get into a situation where you need more articulation, it extends about 6 inches, dropping your axle.
As you've probably already figured out, there's no way we're going to stick a stock rear end in Project Wicked Willy's. In fact, with this high pinion 9-inch Ford from Curry Enterprises, we're going to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Now, there's no doubt the strength of the 9-inch Ford is undeniable, but it has one major drawback for the off-roader, with a pinion that sits about an inch lower than any other rear end. Now, Curry took care of that problem by totally redesigning the center chunk and lifting the pinion about 4 inches higher than stock.
Oh, but they don't stop there. They'll also custom make a housing and axles to whatever length you want. Then we had them throw in a Detroit locker and a full disc brake setup.
Hey man, let's find a home for this thing.
I know just the place.
We're going to go with the spring under setup, but for those of you guys that are thinking about doing a spring over, which means running the spring over the axle, a lot of the same installation procedures still apply.
Now we come to the most important part of setting up a four-wheel drive suspension, and that's pinion and drive shaft angles. Now, if you're going to use a conventional drive shaft with a single U-joint at either end, the tail shaft of the transmission has got to be parallel with the pinion yoke of the rear end. That prevents vibration. Now, if you're going to use a drive shaft that's got a CV joint up at the transmission end, then the pinion yoke of the rear end has got to be in line with the drive shaft. Here's another thing. Your U-joint angles should never exceed 15 degrees for continuous use. If they do, you'll chew up your U-joints. And one last thing, all these angles need to be set with the vehicle sitting at ride height. So for now, we're just going to center up the rear end and snug it down.
I know you're dying to see the rubber we're going to fill our 6-inch lift with, and since we're putting a bulletproof drivetrain on Wicked Willy's, we have to have some serious rubber to put it all in motion. Now, Interco has created quite a buzz with their new SSR radial, so they were the perfect choice for us. This tire will not only handle any level 5 trail, but the new tread and radial design make them great on the interstate as well.
Of course, we're not going to wrap that kind of rubber around just any old wheel. And a classic like the old 55, heck, it deserves a classic wheel. Now, Halliburton's been making wheels since about '47, and as you can see by this polished aluminum speedway, what was cool then is definitely cool now. Now, add to that their unique tri-bar knockoff, and you've got the crowning touch to an awesome setup.
Oh man, Stace, not a whole lot you need to say about that, is there?
Not that we can say on the air. Stay with us. Trucks will be back after the break.
Later on the show, a rare bow tie makes a cameo appearance in the truck shop. But up first, Project Wicked Willy's takes on that Dana 44.
Welcome back to the shop. Now that we have a high pinion 9-inch Ford and a 6-inch lift in the rear end of Wicked Willy's, we need to address the front by getting things up in the air and upgrading the front axle as well.
The first thing we need to do is get rid of about 40 years of wear and tear. We're going to start by popping these springs loose. You can see they have what's called the military double wrap for safety. It's a good thing. This inner spring on the driver's side is broken.
Remember, the parts on these old vehicles are valuable, so don't just chuck them because somebody out there is going to want them. You'd be amazed how a few ads in the paper can help offset your project costs. By the way, here's another example of Willys heritage. Check out this open shackle. It was plenty strong enough for the stock setup, but we're going to need something a little bit stronger for our application.
Now, speaking of shackles, we only need to do a slight modification to this hole here by reaming it out to 1 inch so our urethane bushings will fit. Now, keep in mind, a 1-inch drill bit can cost you some serious money, so you may want to check your local pawn shops. You never know what you can pick up for a couple of bucks.
We're also going to use National's custom springs on the front so we can level out our 6-inch lift. Make sure to use new hardware when you put your upgrades in, because saving money here could cost you some major downtime out on the trail somewhere.
Now it's time to check out the fun stuff. The Dana 44 is pretty much the standard for light truck off-roading, so we had Hicks 4x4 specialists whip us up a little package to go with a 9-inch Ford in the rear. Now they'll design the housing and axles to whatever length that you might want, and they'll put in whatever gearing or traction device you think you got to have.
Then they'll finish it off with disc brakes and these huge vented rotors, and for serious off-roading, you have to have manual locking hubs. Now, since one of the first things your spotter is going to see when you crest a hill is your differential, the Sphend aluminum cover from Off-Road Unlimited not only looks good, but it's going to help you run cooler as well.
Now, a lot of people make mistakes in the front thinking, hey, I'll just grab this axle and rotate it like I did in the rear to take care of my drive shaft angles. No, no, no. When you do that, you throw off your caster angle, and that's why some lifted four-wheel drives wander all over the road and are dangerous. Now, the only way to do this correctly is to go to a place like Hicks, have them set your pinion and caster angles before they weld the ends on.
Keep it coming. There you go. In back here.
We're in up here.
All right. Now that we have it sitting right, we can put our drivetrain back in. Now, I know some of you guys are probably wondering how we did on our side clearance, and we'll check that by bolting in these Sanderson block hugger headers. Now, the biggest reason we're going to go with these is because we have to clear the drive shaft as well. And as you can see, no clearance problems here at all.
We got these polished aluminum pulleys from Mopar Performance. Look at this. We've got just enough room between the cross member and the pulley to get a fan belt through there, and that'd be okay. But I'm going to go ahead and trim out here like the other side is to allow for some engine movement. While I'm up here, I'm going to go ahead and put on AGR's Super Pump to handle the power steering. Believe me, we're going to need the extra power to turn those big old meats. Now the line of the radiator comes to here, so you see we have plenty of room in the front of the motor. However, the motor sits so low in the frame that we can't use a stock fan. So we'll go ahead and use an electric fan because they work a lot better anyway.
We've already talked about side clearance and front clearance. Now we need to address hood clearance. Here you go, man.
All right.
Yeah. We got these polished valve covers from Mopar. Mix these with a little bit of orange paint and you're definitely making a statement. Now for a carb, we're going to use Edelbrock's 750 CFM Performer, which is basically about as maintenance-free as you're going to get. And to top it all off, it's B&M's high-tech air cleaner that has elements on both sides so you don't have a problem with clearance in the center.
I'll tell you what, Mel, the old Willys is starting to look wicked now.
Just the way we like it. I can't wait to get this thing off-road.
I got some bad news for you.
What's that?
We got to take the whole thing apart and paint the frame.
I hate that part, just like I hate taking breaks, but we got to pay the bills. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
We're glad you stayed with us because we're about to show you a rare bow tie that consistently takes first place trophies in the modified category for Larry Clayton of Columbia, Tennessee. Now, since Chevrolet only made 2,244 of these in 1957, it's always special when a Cameo makes an appearance, even in the truck shop.
Now, the first Cameo was built in '55, and the whole idea behind this GM creation was to combine the style of a truck and a car. What this eventually gave birth to was the El Camino in '59. But hey, that's a whole other story.
The first thing that catches your eye about the front end of this truck is the obvious character the designers gave it. From the hooded headlights to the wide-mouth grille, and let's face it, you definitely don't see chrome like this anymore.
Unless, of course, you pop the hood to reveal one finely detailed engine compartment that's got plenty of shine as well. Now, don't get the wrong idea. The Cameo didn't come stock with this 396 big block and the Turbo 400 behind it, or for that matter, the late model subframe that has independent front suspension and disc brakes. But if we didn't point it out, you'd never know.
Now, the interior on this Chevy will take your breath away. The dash is painted the same metallic blue as the body, and the handcrafted wood panel inserts get a big thumbs up from us. The original seat has been covered in a beige velour, as well as the top inserts and the sun visors. Cool.
Now we get to the part that makes a Cameo truly unique. The bedsides, which are fiberglass, follow the styling cues of the 50s that include a two-tone insert, tail fin, and lots of chrome covering the tail lights and bumper that have the unmistakable look of their era.
Of course, the Cameo was still intended to be a pickup, and since fiberglass won't stand up to a load, the inside of the bed was metal. Then they used a stainless steel strip to hide the seam between the two.
Now, wood beds were pretty common in the 50s, and this one's been redone in white oak with stainless steel strips and hardware. The tailgate, however, is anything but common. Two levers pop it open, and a retracting cable that disappears into the bed keeps it from dragging the ground.
Unfortunately, this truck doesn't see the road too often, but sometimes that's the price you pay to compete at a national level.
And since the Cameo was only made from '55 to '58, it's just good to know that at least one isn't spending its golden years in the junkyard. Stick around, we've still got more trucks for you right after this.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, we know you probably thought you'd never see woodworking in a truck shop, but the fact is, most do-it-yourselfers, when they have to work on a part, end up propping it up on cinder blocks or lawn furniture. In other words, you don't have proper sawhorses, and going to the hardware store can nail you for about 40 bucks a pop.
So we're going to show you how to build your own sawhorses that'll support an entire body or chassis while you work on it. Now, the great thing about building your own is you can make them as high or as low as you want. Some of the materials you're going to need is a 1x4, some 2x4s, a couple 2x6s, as well as 3-inch wood screws.
We're going to make the top 4 feet long. We're going to use a 2x6 and a couple of 2x4s. Then we'll screw them together to form an uneven-sided eye. Now this may look strange, but this is the key to the strength of these Sawhorses. Now we're using wood screws because they're a lot stronger than nails. It's also a good idea to drill a pilot hole, especially if you're using a harder wood like oak, because it'll want to split on you.
Now it's time for the legs. And like we said before, you can make them any length you want, but we're going to make ours about 3 feet because that's going to put the horse at a perfect working height. Now another reason this design is superior in strength is because of the 2x6 on top. Because when you put your leg on, the 2x6 butts up against the top of the leg, transferring the load directly into the leg.
Now you're not done yet. You need to stress these legs or the whole thing will collapse on you. Now the best way to do this is take a 2x4, put it in place, make your marks, and cut it out. Now you'll need one of these for both sides, and it should look something like this when you're done. Now you may have noticed that Mel set the legs in 4 inches. The reason he did that is so this brace will tuck up in there real nice. Now the purpose for these braces is to keep these legs from doing the splits on you.
Now we need to stress the legs the other direction. We're doing that by making cross members out of 1x4s. Now make sure when you do this that you go the opposite direction for maximum strength.
Looking pretty sturdy there, Mel.
Yeah, I think these will do the job.
Now you can make these look as good as you want by angle cutting the legs here at the top or at the bottom, but that won't make any difference as far as strength goes, so that's entirely up to you.
If you're wondering how strong these things really are, the body of our old Willie should answer that question. But the best part is we built both of them for about 20 bucks.
A lot of people ask, how do I detail parts like these valve covers? Well, you can do it the old-fashioned way and tediously tape around all these spots, then deal with the mess of pulling up the tape, not to mention the frustration factor of missing a spot. No, I found a better way to do it is to take a strip of tape and tape around the perimeter of where you're going to paint. Now spray on some color. Then take a rag with some solvent and wipe the paint off the area that you want to shine. Now when you pull the tape off, you have a totally color-matched part that will help you stand out at the car show or on the street.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
Everybody knows billet grills have been quite the rage the past few years, but not everybody's into that billet look. So Street Scene came up with this unique design that just screams off-road and performance. You can get them for basically any truck out there, and installation couldn't be any easier. They mount right over your existing grills. The Speed Grill starts at under $100, and Dealer Sport Truck can help you chase them down.
Now for those of you running a carburetor, you need to check out this new Street Performance Holly. It's easy to spot with its bright zinc finish, and it's available in a square flange or spreadboard design for you quadrajet guys, 600 or 750 CFM, electric or manual choke. Now a Holly's always been easy to tune thanks to its design, and the price looks really good too, about 220 bucks.
If you own a classic like our 55 Willys and you have to upgrade your gauges but you don't want to lose the original look, you don't have to look any further than United Speedometer. They converted our stock cluster to 12 volt and put in brand new VDO movements. Then they applied new artwork and chromed the housing. It cost about $600 to have our cluster done, but as you can see, it was money very well spent. That's going to do it for Truck Gear. Here's a preview of next week's show.
Mel and Stacey have already slammed Project Sport Sierra. Next week, they'll change the tone and the tunes on their GMC with an exhaust system and stereo upgrade. After that, they'll hit the trail with a brand new Ford Ranger 4x4 before taking you back to the shop to fit a CJ7 with an off-road shower. That's all next week on Trucks.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks for being with us. We look forward to trucking with you again next week.
This thing's ready to come out.
Oh, man, here we go.
Better not. I can scratch it, but you can't.
Hey, you're the one off the side of the road. Hey, Jordan.
Trucks is an RTM production.